You ever have a moment that just sticks to your skin? Not because it was loud, not because anyone screamed or slammed a door, but because it was quiet. So quiet, it felt like the universe leaned in to watch. That's what this was. One of those moments that slips past normal, that doesn't ask for permission, that doesn't knock. It just walks in and never leaves. It was just a regular Tuesday, the kind where nothing special happens. Dinner was done. The kids had gone to bed. My husband had already passed out on the couch with his phone halfway to the floor. And I was just there, still up, still folding laundry I didn't remember washing, still living in a marriage that had started to feel like a long list of unfinished conversations. You know that feeling? Where your house is full, but your heart feels vacant. That was me, smiling through it, getting through it, pretending not to notice how long it had been since he last really saw me. Not just looked at me, but saw me. And then, there was him, my husband's friend, Liam, the one who was only supposed to stay a few nights, the one who always said thank you when I brought him a towel, the one who didn't look through me when we passed each other in the hallway. I should have gone to bed early that night. I should have closed the laundry room door. I should have ignored the soft sound of the kitchen tap running. But I didn't. I stepped into the kitchen, and in that moment, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. Something that changed everything. Something I haven't been able to shake, even now. And the worst part? What happened next? It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was a choice one made in silence. One that no one warned me would feel so warm and wrong at the same time. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because the stories we bury deep, the ones we never speak of, they're the ones that shape who we quietly become. And I need to tell you the rest. Because it didn't end in that kitchen. Not even close. I should have left the kitchen that night. But I didn't. And that's where everything began. I used to think we had a good marriage. Not perfect, but good. You know, steady, safe, predictable. We met in college. He made me laugh. Told me I was different. We got married at 24. 2 kids by 30. A house with a backyard. The kind of life that looks just right from the outside. But somewhere along the way, we stopped looking at each other. I don't know when it happened. Maybe after the second baby. Maybe after all the little arguments that never really ended, just faded. Maybe it was the night I cried quietly in the bathroom and he never asked why. He started working late more often. Long hours. Business trips. Always tired. Always busy. Always just somewhere else. And me? I became everything. The wife. The mom. The scheduler. The planner. The one who remembered every appointment, every allergy, every lunchbox note. The one who made sure no one else ever felt forgotten. Except me. There's a kind of ache that builds up when you're needed by everyone, but wanted by no one. Then Liam showed up. Fresh off a breakup. Said he just needed a place to crash for a week. Maybe 2. He was easy to like. Charming. Warm. The kind of guy who made you feel like you were the only person in the room when he spoke. Everyone loved him. Even the kids. And my husband? He was happy to have him around. Said it was good to have another man in the house. Someone to watch the game with. Talk business. Grab beers. But me? I noticed things. Like how Liam asked if I was okay even when I smiled. How he rinsed his plate without being told. How he said thank you like he meant it. It wasn't flirtation. Not at first. It was something softer. Quieter. Like someone seeing the cracks in me and not looking away. And it had been so long since anyone noticed. Our house, it looked lived in. But it didn't feel alive. It felt cold. Tidy. Quiet. Like a museum of what used to be love. My husband slept like a rock every night. I lay awake, wondering if this was it. If this was how the rest of my life would feel like background noise in my own home. And Liam. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He was just there. But some presences are louder than words. And some silences, they hold more than secrets. That night in the kitchen. It wasn't love I saw in his eyes. Not pity either. It was something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. It was late. The kind of late where everything feels softer, dimmer. Like the world has turned its back and only the quiet parts of you remain. The house had settled. Kids tucked in. My husband asleep on the couch, face turned to the side, breathing heavy, remote still clutched in his hand. The TV screen had gone black, asking, "Are you still watching?" I wasn't. Not really. I was just there. I gathered the last pile of laundry. Folded shirts that didn't fit the same anymore. Socks that never stayed paired. And towels I didn't remember washing. My hands were moving, but my mind was somewhere else. Wandering. Empty. I needed water. I walked into the kitchen, slow and barefoot. Didn't expect to see anyone. Didn't expect him. Liam. He was standing there. Shirtless. Back turned. The fridge light casting a soft blue glow across his shoulders. And in his hand a photo. One of us. My family, taken a few years ago at the beach. All smiles. All pretend. He didn't hear me at first. He was staring at that photo like it was telling him something. Something he couldn't quite hear, but didn't want to miss. When he finally looked up, I froze. There was no panic in his eyes. No embarrassment. Just something still. Something raw. He set the photo back down, gently. Like it might break if he moved too fast. "I couldn't sleep," he said. His voice was low. Almost a whisper. Said the house felt heavy. But it wasn't the words that caught me. It was the way he said them. Like he wasn't talking about the air. Or the walls. He was talking about something else. Something sitting in his chest. Or maybe mine. I nodded, pretending to understand. Pretending that my throat hadn't gone dry. That my heart hadn't started doing something strange and familiar. I reached for the glass. My fingers brushed his by accident. Or maybe not. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. For a second, just a second, it felt like the whole kitchen paused. Held its breath. And he looked at me. Not like a friend. Not like someone passing time. He looked at me like I was a question he'd been trying to answer. Like I was something he'd been searching for, and somehow just found. I took a step back, said goodnight too quickly, too softly, and left the room. But the feeling followed me, down the hall, up the stairs, into my bed. I lay beside my husband. His back to me, his breathing steady, and all I could think about was the way Liam had looked at me. Like I wasn't invisible. Like I wasn't forgotten. Like I was still there. The next morning, I told myself it was nothing. Just a look. Just a moment. One of those late-night slips that happen when you're tired and lonely and maybe imagining things. I made breakfast like always. Packed lunches. Checked backpacks. Put on a smile like it still fit. But everything felt off. Not wrong. Just different. I caught myself glancing at the kitchen door, waiting for Liam to walk through. And when he did, I felt it again. That quiet hum under my skin. Like my body recognized something my mind wasn't ready to admit. He smiled at me, said good morning, and it felt warmer than it should have. I smiled back. Too long, too softly. And I told myself, I'm just being friendly. That's all this is. I mean, I'm married, not dead. I can feel things and still be loyal, right? He's hurting too. Just out of a relationship. He's just grateful. That's all. But the lies we tell ourselves, they start small. And they grow quiet roots. It was little things. A refill of his coffee without him asking. The way our fingers brushed when I passed him the mug. The way he held my gaze a second too long when he said thank you. He started complimenting me more. Not in big, obvious ways. But small ones. Your hair looks nice like that. You always make the best coffee. I don't know how you do it all. And I'd laugh, brush it off. But inside, I was listening, soaking in it if I'm being honest. Because I hadn't heard words like that in a long time. I started noticing him more. The way his voice dropped when he was serious. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. The way he listened, really listened when I spoke. We talked more. Late at night, when everyone was asleep. Small conversations that drifted into longer ones. He'd lean on the counter. I'd sit on the stool. I told myself it was nothing. Just two adults filling the quiet. Being human. But I wasn't being honest. Not with myself. Because my heart was starting to race before I even entered the room. And sometimes I caught him looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. And sometimes I did the same. I told myself I was being kind. Helping someone through a hard time. That's what good people do. That's what wives do. But kindness doesn't usually skip your heartbeat. And kindness doesn't leave you wondering what would happen if the lights stayed off a little longer. No, it wasn't a kiss. Not yet. But it was something worse. It was hope. And that scared me more than anything. Days passed, but the space between us kept shrinking. Not physically, but emotionally. Little things started to feel like rituals. He'd linger in the kitchen just a few minutes longer when I walked in. I'd find myself waiting for those moments, those in-between silences. Where words weren't needed but somehow, everything was said. My husband? He was drifting. Longer hours. Colder dinners. Empty goodnights. I could have screamed, and he wouldn't have noticed. But Liam, he noticed everything. He started opening up. Not all at once, but in quiet, careful pieces. Told me how his last relationship ended. How it wasn't just heartbreak, it was being forgotten. Said he felt like a burden. Like he kept showing up in people's lives, just to be left again. And I felt that. Because I knew what it meant to be there for everyone, and still feel unseen. Sometimes, he'd stop mid-sentence, and I could tell he wasn't sure if he should keep going. But I'd stay. I'd listen. And somehow that was enough to make him keep unraveling. And one night, one quiet, sleepless night, I came downstairs. Thought I heard something. At first, I thought it was the wind. But then I saw the glow from the living room. Liam was there, sitting on the couch, head bowed, hands clenched, shoulders shaking. He was crying. Not loud, not messy, just soft, like he didn't want the pain to wake anyone but couldn't hold it down anymore. I didn't speak, didn't ask what was wrong. I just sat beside him, close, but not too close. Enough for him to know I was there. He didn't look at me at first. Just wiped his face with the sleeve of his hoodie. And then he whispered, "Thank you for seeing me, for not walking away." And my heart broke in a way I didn't know it still could. Because no one had said that to me in so long. Thank you for seeing me. We sat there, in the dark, saying nothing, but sharing everything. He didn't touch me, but the silence between us did. And it spoke of everything we both tried to bury. All the parts of ourselves we'd shoved into the background. All the aches we'd dressed up as strength. All the longing that had been waiting quietly for someone to see it. I went upstairs that night and lay beside my husband again. But the bed felt colder than it ever had. And when I closed my eyes, it wasn't my husband's face I saw. It was Liam's. Sitting in that dim room. Eyes red. Voice trembling. And something in me knew. This wasn't just emotional anymore. It was becoming something else. The night it happened, I wasn't wearing anything special. Just an old t-shirt and loose pajama pants. Nothing fitted. Nothing planned. But when he looked at me like I was sacred. It was a Thursday. Nothing remarkable. Roast chicken. Roasted silence. The usual hum of a family dinner. Forks scraping plates. The kids whispering and giggling at their own inside joke. My husband barely looked up from his phone. He was already halfway into work mode again. And Liam. He was quiet, but his eyes weren't. They flicked to me every so often. Just brief enough not to be noticed, but long enough to be felt. After dinner, my husband stood up. Said he had to take a call. Just 10 minutes, he said, already halfway to the front door. He didn't kiss my cheek. Didn't thank me for the meal. He rarely did anymore. The door closed behind him. And then, it was quiet. Too quiet. The kids were upstairs. Laughter echoing faintly from their room. And Liam. He didn't get up right away. He sat there, looking at his plate, then at his hands, then at me. I felt it before it happened. That shift in the air. Like the room knew something before we did. He stood, slow, deliberate, took a step toward me. I didn't move. I should have, but I didn't. He paused in front of me, close enough to hear my breath, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his skin, close enough that everything inside me started screaming and whispering at the same time. He raised his hand not to touch me, just to brush a loose strand of hair from my face. But that one touch, that small, trembling gesture, it felt like a storm breaking open. I looked up at him, and he looked down at me. There was a beat, a pause that stretched too far, too long. His hand hovered near my cheek. Mine gripped the edge of the chair. We didn't speak. There were no words left to hide behind. Then, he leaned in. Not all the way. Not enough for a kiss. But enough to wonder. Enough to ache. And in that breathless second, one of us pulled back. I don't know if it was him. Or me. Maybe it was both. Maybe it was neither. But the spell broke. And I stepped away. My chest was tight. My thoughts a mess. He turned first. Ran a hand through his hair. Let out the smallest sigh. Like he was holding something in. I cleared my throat. Pretended to check the dishes. Pretended my hands weren't shaking. It wasn't a kiss. But it felt like one. And worse than crossing the line was knowing that I wanted to. I stood at the sink after he left the room, staring at nothing. Water running over a plate I'd already rinsed twice. And that's when it hit me that nothing was the same anymore. But it's what happened after that left me shaken. After that night, everything shifted. Not loudly, not in some dramatic, obvious way, but in the small, quiet ways that hurt the most. Liam stopped lingering. Stopped looking at me the way he used to. He'd walk past me in the hallway without a word, eyes low, hands in his pockets. Like the space between us had grown sharp. Like if we touched again, we'd both bleed. And I felt it. Every time he walked away. I felt it like a bruise that wouldn't stop aching. We started avoiding the same rooms. I'd go upstairs when he came down. He'd wait to eat until after I'd left the kitchen. The laughter was gone. The late-night talks. The small, accidental moments that used to feel like oxygen. Gone. And my husband, he noticed something. He didn't say it. Didn't ask. But I could feel his eyes stay on me a little longer some nights. Like he was trying to figure out what had changed. Or maybe wondering if he even wanted to know. I couldn't look him in the face. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't focus. I'd lie in bed beside him, listening to the steady rise and fall of his breath, and feel like I was drowning in my own silence. I avoided mirrors. Didn't want to see the woman staring back. She didn't look like me. She looked tired. Empty. Like someone who had wandered too close to something dangerous and didn't know how to walk away. The house felt colder. Not physically, but in spirit. Like something sacred had cracked beneath the surface. And no one dared mention it. And Liam? He started packing his things. Said he found a friend's place to crash. Said it was time. I nodded. Said I understood. But I didn't. Because I wanted him to leave. But I also wanted him to stay. I was grieving a man who was still under my roof, and mourning a connection that should never have existed. And the worst part? I couldn't tell anyone. Not even myself. Because I didn't know what hurt more, the guilt, or the emptiness that came after. After Liam left, the silence in the house didn't feel peaceful. It felt hollow. Echoed. Like something had been peeled away from the walls, and all that was left was the sound of me, thinking too much. I kept asking myself the same questions over and over. Not out loud, God, no. Just in my head, late at night, when the world was quiet and my heart wouldn't stop pacing. Was I lonely or just selfish? Was I looking for comfort or an escape? Did I really feel something for him? Or was I just so used to being invisible that the first person who saw me felt like a lifeline? Did I want to be seen or desired? Because there's a difference, isn't there? Being seen means someone notices who you are. Your silence. Your exhaustion. Your laugh when it slips out accidentally. Your stories, even the ones you never finish. But being desired? That's something else. That's someone wanting the idea of you. The shape. The skin. The moment. And maybe I didn't care which it was. Maybe I just wanted something. Anything to make me feel like I was still real. And the question that stayed longest, the one I couldn't outrun. If I'd kissed him, would it have made me feel whole or just more broken? Because that moment, that breath between want and action, I still feel it. Some days, I convince myself I did the right thing. That stepping back meant something. That it made me good. But other days, I wonder if I stopped it because I was strong or because I was afraid of what it would have revealed. Sometimes betrayal isn't a loud act. It isn't a scream, or a slammed door, or a tear-soaked apology. Sometimes, it's just a whisper, a choice you almost made, a heartbeat you didn't silence in time, and it stays with you, long after the moment ends, long after the man is gone, long after you've told yourself you're fine. It stays, because it wasn't about him. It was about everything I'd stopped asking for. Everything I'd convinced myself I didn't need. Everything I buried, just to keep the peace. And now? Now I live with the echo. Not of what happened, but of what almost did. Have you ever found yourself in a moment you didn't plan for? One you didn't chase, but somehow still needed? Not because it was right. Not because it made sense. But because it touched a part of you you'd forgotten was even there. Because that's what this was. Not a fantasy. Not a game. Just a glimpse of something I hadn't felt in so long, being seen. And it scared me. Not just the moment itself, but how ready I was for it. If you've ever stood at the edge of a line you never thought you'd cross, tell me, what held you back? Was it guilt? Fear? Or something deeper? Something about yourself that you weren't ready to face? Leave a comment. You don't have to explain everything. Just say what you wish someone had told you in your moment. And if this story stirred something, even something small, subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because some stories aren't for headlines. They're for the parts of us we never let out loud. They're the confessions we whisper, even when no one's listening. Liam left 2 weeks later. No big goodbye. No questions. Just a short note on the counter and a quiet door that closed behind him. We never spoke of it again. Not once. But sometimes, when I hear a certain song, or walk into that same kitchen late at night, I remember the silence of that evening, and I wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't stopped him? I don't have the answer. Maybe that's the point. Because sometimes, the line between loyalty and loneliness is thinner than we admit. And sometimes, the real betrayal is how long we let ourselves go unseen.